right, somebody time it. As soon as she lets it in, it cannot go for more than 90 seconds. Am I clear?
What happens after 90 seconds?
Don't want to stay. Put your hand on it. Now say, talk to me.
They like you.
Allow me to demonstrate the skill of Shaolin.
Welcome to the dojo. This is going to be a series of videos in which I'm going to be reviewing films that I just can't get my other two co-hosts to watch because of interest or just availability. So I'm going to be covering these. And if you have a bigger interest in these movies being covered and want to see the opinions of my two other co-hosts, let me know in the comments below, and I will do my best to kind of coax them into watching the film and us reviewing on the main show.
So let's get it.
But today, I'm going to be covering that of a film called Talk to Me. This is a horror film that I saw on a whim. I've been to a bunch of other movies within the last couple months, and I thought it looked interesting and wanted to check it out. And boy, am I glad I did. This film is a masterclass in not only horror, but movie making in general. From the directing to the writing to the acting and the sound design, it was all done to an immaculate extent that I really can't express enough. Obviously, there's some research I need to be doing in regards to the background of the film. Upon the opening, it seemed as though this film had been passed through a couple Australian film festivals, and I don't know if A24 just produced it or if they had a big part about making this movie as far as putting resources into it. All that aside, this is a great movie. This is essentially a paranormal ghost movie. For people that aren't aware of what it is or haven't seen any trailers, it's kind of similar to movies like Insidious and other possession movies of the sort, in which characters are allowing spirits to come into their space and also come into their body for the intent of just discussing conversation with people on the other side or just wanting to see loved ones or whatever it may be. This is a non-spoiler review, so I'm not going to get into a lot of the main spoilery topics and plot points. It's just going to be a generic talk through. And if we do a spoiler review, if you guys are in want of a spoiler review, let me know in the comments here. Like I said before, and we'll try to get that going later at a later date. But this movie was just so good, I needed to talk about it initially. Getting into the film, the first thing that I have to talk about when it comes to this film is the acting. A lot of the actors in this film did an amazing job. They were interesting characters. They did an amazing job at demonstrating range. There's different moments in this film in which the characters had some comedy bits and pieces that I thought were funny. And I actually believe that these characters had relationships with one another. Like, it didn't seem like they just threw actors in a room, gave them a script and said, have at it. It felt like these characters had a relationship that was built up over years and years and years. So I really was impressed by that. And it was something that was done so well that I want to give the props to. I'm gonna look up the director, because as far as I know, most of these actors haven't been in major blockbuster films or leading roles yet. So hopefully they get that opportunity one day down the line, if they please. Getting into the directing and the cinematography, this is one of these more standout things in regards to this film. And I think in horror in general, because horror has to, that along with sound design, you have to play along with or play around with the different ways of how to scare people. And it's usually through the ways of what people can see and what people can hear. Going along with the acting, this is probably something I should discuss before I got into any of the parts in general, was the themes and the message that this film was kind of give off. For me, from what I gathered, the overall arching theme of this film was loneliness and dealing with loss and grief and the different ways people go about that. And this is conveyed through all the different ways that this film was made. First and foremost, when it comes to the directing aspect, showing the loneliness, there is a particular type of shot that they do a lot in this film that I really thought was witty and really clever, in which they will have a close-up shot on a main character or just any character in general, and they will be a really close-up, clear shot on this individual, but everything else and every other person around them was kind of blurred out with a Gaussian blur to an extent, and you don't necessarily see them in the best way. And it gives the effect that this character is lonely and by themselves. And they do this even in a room full of people. So for me, what I thought it was emulating was for a lot of people that have struggled with depression and loneliness in the past. I myself have to an extent. Even when you're in a room full of people that are energetic, rowdy, and whatever it may be, you can still have this sense of loneliness in which you're kind of blocking everything else out subconsciously, and you're kind of lost in your own head and in the moment of whatever you have going on. And this is replicated with that shot, I believe. You also get that in the sense of the auditory sound design as well, when they'll be in a similar situation in which the characters will be in a room full of loud things going on, and they'll just like either lower the audio on everything else, or they'll just boost the audio of what potentially the character's thinking, or even just increasing a sort of auditory disturbance, like white noise in the background, I guess, like kind of increasing that to which it makes it difficult for you to hear everything else. There's one scene in the beginning in which the main character is like having a conversation with her father at like the sink, and she's washing dishes. This is done through the running water of the water faucet. She's like washing dishes. Her dad says something, and because the water is going on, even the audience can't clearly make out what's being said because you're hearing it from her perspective, and she has to constantly like turn the water off and on so she can understand what her dad's saying. And then accompanied with this is the shot in which it's blurring out his face a little bit, so you don't really even get to fully see this father character for a good bit of the film because they're trying to make him very distant because of loss or whatever may be going on with the character. I'm not going to give details on that in this review, but they do that a lot. And I thought these things were done in a very smart, intellectual way that I don't really see too often. I've seen the auditory thing as far as directors manipulating noise to get that effect, but this is really one of the few times I've seen directors use this through a shot in the cinematography as far as making a character feel alone and helpless, with not even just like making them be in the dark by themselves, but literally putting them in a room full of people and blurring everything out and giving focus to that person and their thoughts and feelings. The writing of this film is also very strong here. Like I said before, they introduce these themes of loneliness and grief, and they keep that pretty consistent throughout, even introducing new concepts and new characters coming in. They're always helping to expound upon this theme with the characters, or they are like a direct avenue down in which the character has to help deal with that grief. Getting into the main plot of this story, I guess, again, without giving away spoilers, everything I'm going to talk about here is going to be stuff that you see in the trailer, so it's not going to be anything new or that you wouldn't get from watching the trailer itself. The kids in this film are essentially having this, I guess, Bloody Mary type of thing in which they're playing around with this hand. And upon touching this hand and saying some key phrases, you're able to see a ghost, a spirit, whatever it may be. I don't think they really classified what it may be, but you can call it a ghost or whatever it is. And they're able to let this spirit take over their body for a momentary point in time and kind of just say weird things or have weird suggestions. And the kids in this are enjoying this. It's kind of odd because a part of me is like, I don't think kids or teenagers would ever act in such a way, because I feel like most people will be terrified of stuff like this. But at the same time, you hear a lot of stories about, and I've known a lot of people that play a Ouija board. So it's something very similar to this, but very pushed to the extreme, because these kids see this as like a funny thing and they all take part in doing it and letting spirits communicate and take them over just for shits and giggles. And you see different instances in which certain characters are terrified at this thing going on, but because they want to be included and feel part of the group, they'll at least stay there and watch the thing go on, and they won't stop it because they want to feel included. This all leads to a really bad formula of them doing too much and letting a spirit stay around too long, and that's when all the adventures of the film begin. And this is done in a very great way and has a really interesting wrap up. And it makes it hard to believe what's going on and what to trust sometimes in the different parts of the film, because these spirits are around kind of manipulating the main character and other characters and achieving what they want. But yeah, I'm going to stop myself here before I get too deep into spoilers by accident and saying something that will make a lot of people mad that won't actually see this film. All I can say again is this movie for me is a straight up, I want to say a 10 out of 10, but that's me being hyperbolic because I just saw the movie not too long ago, like literally just yesterday. But I will say after a day of sitting with it and kind of digesting the film and its and its themes and how well it was made and how much I enjoyed it, I'd still give this movie like a 9 at least, like a solid 9. Maybe upon a second watch, I give it a 10 just from being able to focus on the technical aspects more and not just taking in the film as a film. It may be higher or maybe lower, but for now, it's a 9 out of 10, and I definitely recommend this for people, especially fans of the genre of horror like myself, even fans that just enjoy a well-written, well-made movie. This is something I highly suggest. A24 did their damn thing. They usually do pretty well with stuff like this. A24, Blumhouse are pretty well known for doing really good horror films, but A24 knocked this out the park, and come October, they have I think a couple other movies that they're scheduled to release as well. Blumhouse as well. Blumhouse is doing the new Exorcist sequel. So these two studios are at the forefront of horror at the moment, and they're going to be able to do some big things. So I myself will be covering them in Dojo episodes like this. So again, if you want to see specific ones that you don't see covered, let me know in the comments or shoot us a message on any of the Then and Out podcast social media platforms, and I'll try my best, and we'll try our best to get to them, whether myself or the main podcast co-host all together. We'll try to tackle that film or show, whatever else it may be. Again, thank you guys for your support. We hope for your continued support, and I appreciate you guys checking in to this episode of Diesel's Dojo. Peace.